What's up guys, I'm Dustin, this is Mini Split Supply. Today we're at our display store here in Rolla, Missouri, and we're going to be showing you how to install a 12,000 BTU unit. Alright, so setting your height on your mini split. That's one of the biggest questions we get. When you have low ceilings, I like to leave a little bit of headspace so that way the heat is down lower. What happens when you put them up high in colder areas, when you plan to use them for heat, all your heat's at the ceiling. So now you're reading the temperature of up here versus down here where you actually are. So I like to set them about a foot and a half depending on the height. And then what I do is also set them up to blow through rooms. So this one will take care of this main room, and then it will also blow through, and it's gonna go into the main room. So now we don't have to have a unit out here, and it will do this whole space. That's one of the biggest things I've learned that makes your unit work the best. Now we're in the interior where we're gonna set up our head unit. We're gonna figure out where we wanna mount it, how high, we're gonna open it up, get set up. We're gonna have our Wi-Fi sensor, remote holder, warranty book, signal wire, our remote, and we got our display board. We can put this up on the wall, make it a little easier. We're gonna take the Phillips screw out. We're going to set our bracket, hook our electrical up, and get this thing mounted. Pop the bracket off. All it does is lift up, come off. This will be what we mount on the wall. So basically, what I've done is set this up so that way our hole is going to come through directly in the center of one of these channels. Now that we're here, what I'm going to do is find out where my hole is. So we're about 5 inches roughly. So that way we can now check on our template. So I'm going to just set it so that way we're here. Basically, this bracket's gonna sit just like this. Our hole's gonna go right dead through the center of this channel. Make sure you're level, so that way you do not have any drainage issues. We're good. Good. So from here, I'm just setting up where this point's gonna be. I'm gonna just make a dot. Now I know where that is. And what I'll do is measure up on the unit from this point. It's the lip that attaches into this lip. So what I do is come over here. I measure from where this lip will attach to where this bend will come through, and you got to account for the drain tube as well. So it's about 1.5 inches up from this line. So I'll set my point, it's level, so that's where I know where to measure from. I'll make a dot there, so that way I know where to measure up from. I'll do 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches up. That's gonna be right where our hole comes through. I like to use 12-inch pilot. This is just 1/4 inch. I'm gonna send it through at an angle going downward like this, so that way I have no drainage issues. Then what I'll do is I'll come back with my hole saw, inside hole, and then I'll go outside and cut in, so that way I have pilot marks inside and outside. Start going through. And what I do now is I'm gonna angle it downward, because you do need a good angle to make sure that you have no drainage issues. All right, so we got our pilot drilled through. I always come out, make sure I mark it, right where my hole is, so that way I know that's where the pilot is. Obviously on this one, it's not too big of a deal, but if you're on a house with a bunch of stuff, vinyl siding, this is pretty crucial. Just make sure to do it. It's just a safe step, so that way you never drill the hole in the wrong spot. I like these Milwaukee dozer bits. These things are freaking animals. You get a bunch of uses out of them. Got our inside hole. Now we'll go outside, drill from the outside in. So I'm gonna start out slow so I don't rip it. So now we're through. We got our angle going downward. Now we're gonna run the electrical for our head unit. So we'll remove our access panel, then we'll remove our wire holder, and then our cover. Pop that out. Now we have access to where all our wires are gonna go. We're gonna use electrical tape, tape this up, feed it through, hook it up. So we're gonna run the electrical, we're gonna flip it over, knock out the cap so we can run our wire through. Pop that out. Now we got our hole. Flip it over. Open the top. Now we're gonna run our electrical. I tape it up so that way I have an easier time feeding it through. And so that knockout we knocked out, we're gonna feed it right through there. All the way up, right through. And because we taped it, it makes life so much easier. Now we'll untape it and wire it up. I like to fold them slightly, makes it easier to push in. Okay, that's what we're gonna do on the outdoor unit. We're gonna match 1, 2, 3, red, black, white, ground. So now what we'll do, put all our covers back in. Since we're already here, we can pop the display off and hook up our Wi-Fi sensor. Pop it out, boom. So what we do, pop the top off, just a little USB drive, and it'll slide right in, boom. Now we'll just put it back. Now we're good to go. Now we'll flip it back over and start prepping our line set. Since we're coming through the wall, we're gonna bend it straight up. We're gonna move our drain tube right over with it. We're gonna run our line right with it. So we're gonna tape this up, then wrap it all up. I like to tape it up so that way I know it ain't going anywhere, and now I'm gonna come back through and wrap it up with the vinyl wrap the kit comes with. I'll start, wrap it on itself. It's not taped. Don't think it's gonna stick on itself. You just wrap it so it goes on itself. And I'm just wrapping this part that's gonna go through the wall, so that way there's no moisture, no condensation, no nothing coming through. Take your tape. Then we'll come up here, tape this, so that way we can feed it through the wall. I'll kind of bend it down slightly because we're accounting for our angle we drilled. Now we're gonna feed it and set it. So we'll take our signal wire, feed it out. Now we got all our wire out, we'll hang our unit. So when you are doing this one-handed, feed it, send it, twist it, boom. So what I do when I come outside, I kind of rearrange the tube so that way I know we're not going anywhere, because sometimes it doesn't normally set flat. We're gonna open our outdoor unit. So this is where we're gonna have our line set, our drain tube, also 16 foot. We got our bag of goodies, our tape, outdoor cover, and then the sleeve. We're gonna use this sleeve now to throw on there. gonna feed it through, run it to our stop, and cut it to fit. So we'll take it off. We're gonna cut it just past our mark. Now we'll run it back through. So now what we'll do is we're gonna start bending the line over to run down the wall. I keep my hand here and bend slow incremental bends. You do not want to go sharp bends at all. So what I'm doing is pulling up here, pushing down, so that way everything bends together. Sometimes you need to stick your hand up further into the hole to get more of an angle downward so you don't have such a sharp bend right here. Setting your outdoor unit, you can either put it on a pad, you can put it on risers, you can put it on a wall mount. You got a few different options. Just make sure that you know where you want to set it. So like about right here, so we can run down with our electrical, run straight down with our line set and in. But we're gonna be wall mounting, so we're gonna put the bracket on the wall today. 3-piece is always gonna be easier, especially if you're mounting on the side of a house or something where you don't know where the studs are. This makes life way easier. What we'll do, get our legs ready. They're gonna mount like this. This piece goes up here. So at the top, matches the bottom. Now we got the 4 tiny screws. They're gonna go in the bottoms. These screws will go up top. These twist in the back. We can set our beam. Sits in just like that. So what I need to know is center to center on this system. Center to center is about 17¾ So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna find center and then go out 17¾ make my mark so that way I know where my feet are gonna sit. So we're at 34½, 17¾ will be center to center. So now I know that's exactly where my brackets need to go for everything to look good. So to kind of determine height on where I want it, I'm gonna kind of mock it up like this. I'm gonna put the foot on it so that way I can see physically where I want it. It just needs to be off the ground slightly for this application, so we're probably gonna set it about here. So what I'm trying to do now is get my marks to line up. So I've got to split the difference so that way I'm half here, so that way I've got something to sit against. So what I'm gonna do now, grab some caulk, fill the hole so this doesn't leak. So now we'll level it. So now we're just gonna set the bracket on our marks. This is all the weight is gonna be on the right side, so this is the most important side. I'm just sending another anchor in just to hold it. We'll put the little anti-vibration pads on underneath before we put the unit on, but right now we wanna get our line set basically to length. So we're about 3 foot by another 3. So we need to be at 10 foot minimum. This is gonna have to be a little long, so what we'll do is just coil the excess behind it. So what I'm trying to do now is set the line set up so that way it looks as nice as possible, even with a coil. Slow incremental bends with all of this stuff. So basically right now we're setting our line set up to see where we need to cut it, to flare it. I'm gonna leave a little loop in this just because we need 10 foot and from here it's only about 7, so I'm giving myself a little extra. We're gonna cut it about here, bend it over right into our unit. So we'll make our mark, cut it. So we're gonna get our tubing cutter, just roll it. I always try to do this with these facing down so no debris falls inside when you are cutting it. Now we'll just take this. I always knock out the slack. So what I'll do is I'm gonna start this on low. I'm gonna have it running, touch it, back off with it running. And I'm holding it down so that way all the chips fall out. And then you can see it's a perfect edge. You do not want that falling inside. So what I'm gonna do now is cut these off and reuse them. Pop the caps, pop that. This is how I like to empty the line out. So that way we don't dent. Have it upside down so that way you can get any of the burrs, any of the debris out. So what we'll do now is flare. What we're gonna use is a 45-degree eccentric flaring tool from Yellow Jacket. I like to make sure you clean all the debris off. Sometimes copper will sit on the cone. So what I like to do is I just take a dab, put it on there, so that way I've got something as an oil. We're doing our 1/4-inch line first. So we're gonna set it at 1/4. We're gonna use our stop right there. Basically set it right at the stop, tighten it. Make sure your flare nut is on there. Once it's tight, just go. Try to be consistent with your movement. Try not to stop. Loosen it up. Boom. Perfect flare. Now we're gonna switch to our 1/2 inch. So what we're doing, just setting it right against our stop, tightening it. Make sure your flare nut is on. Crank her. Boom. Now that we got our lines flared, what I'm gonna do is set our caps back in until we get ready to put the big unit up. So when you are removing your caps, all that is nitrogen, so do not be afraid. What we're gonna do, add a little nylog. And then what you do, make sure you fully press all the way up and then tighten. So what I'm doing is I'm wiggling this line set while tightening to make sure that I'm seated square, so that way when I do crank it tight, we're not going crooked and it won't cause a leak. Then we're gonna hook up the other line. Make sure to always remove your rubber gaskets. You do not want anything on the face. Check your flares, make sure they're all good. Grab your nylog. So I'm pressing up all while I'm tightening. So right now, all we're gonna do, we're gonna just crank it all the way tight. And you do want to make sure you get this tight, because if you do not, when it goes into heat mode, you will find a leak. Connect your drain tube, tape it up. Now we'll tape everything else together. So what I'm doing now is just getting everything ready so I can route it where I want. I'm gonna vinyl wrap this whole line set. Gonna run signal wire. So what I'm gonna do now, get our vinyl wrap out of here and we're gonna wrap the line set. So I start down a little lower and wrap up. If you do not use a line set cover, you want to make sure you're about a fist width apart so you can get the tape behind it. When you're wrapping it, make sure you're always pulling on your line. I made sure that my drain tube is always running at a slope and it's going to run down and drop in the middle where you can't really see it. What I'm doing now is I ran out of that roll, so I'll put a piece of tape around it, grab the other roll. So what we're gonna do is leave a little bit of slack at the end so we can bend these separate and bend them around. We got our little rubber feet that come with the bracket kit. We're gonna put them on. Washer on the bottom. Now we can hook all our lines, electrical, get all that done. We're gonna take the electrical top out so we can get all our power ran. What I'm doing now is just kind of seeing where I want to cut the wire. You can either leave the pigtails on or cut them off. I like this better because I'm going to wrap it around the screw completely. All we're doing is matching indoor to outdoor for 1, 2, and 3. L, neutral, ground is for our power. Okay, now we'll run our main power. We're gonna use a whip for this. So we're gonna cut this 2 sides. So our disconnect was already set up. Normally you would be setting this up. All you're doing is running your main power in, and then you're gonna run your unit power in. I'm just running a straight knockout so I can run down, over, and right into the system. This is our 1/2 inch liquid tight. We're just gonna run it from the disconnect over. So what I'm gonna do now is just cut it here. So we'll run it right across, tie it up, call it a day. Now what we need is our 12-2 wire. I like to leave a little extra. Feed our line. We're gonna strap it to here. So make sure, put your caps on. So that's basically, we're gonna cut them just above that so we can loop them. I like the needle nose because it makes almost a perfect circle. Now we'll throw our cover back on, hook our main power up, and get her going. Our main power is disconnected. Always leave extra for the people down the road. And with this unit being 110 volt, all we got is a hot, a neutral, and a ground. Now we got our power hooked up. We're gonna leave the main power off until we're just about ready to fire it up. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna find a good length. I'm probably just gonna cut it about here. So what I'm looking for now is I want it to always drain away from the building, the foundation, whatever it is. We don't want it right next to the house. So I'm probably gonna put my hole right about here. Now we'll run a zip tie. It's got a good angle. That's our drain. Now we're basically to the point where we can vacuum out the system. I'm gonna show you how to use the Harbor Freight stuff. If you are getting a new set, you need to make sure that you take the little shredders out of the inside of the lines. Make sure to check all your lines to make sure you have nothing in there blocking any of your flow. Then what we'll do, we got a 410A adapter that goes from 1/4 inch to 5/16, so this will attach to your unit and it'll attach to the normal 134 gauge set. If you bought the unit from us, we most likely give you this. If you didn't, then you're gonna have to buy it on your own. So it comes with our gauge. We're just gonna hook yellow line up for vacuum, blue line up for vacuum. Because we're using the blue side because we need to achieve as close to -30 as possible. Now I know, before even hooking my system up, that it is pulling vacuum all the way through. There's no obstructions in my line. We're gonna pop off our service port cap. We got our pump hooked up to our yellow line into our gauge. Blue line is gonna go into our unit. You just crank her tight. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna turn our vacuum on. We're gonna make sure red side's closed. We can open our blue side. So you can see real time how fast it's actually dropping. And so what I'm gonna do now is let it run for about 15-20 minutes. You can see we've held about 30, so that's right on the money. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna close the system off, and then we'll shut the vacuum off. We'll let it sit for about 15-20 minutes to see if it fluctuates at all, see if we have any kind of leaks. It's gonna be hard to tell if you have a leak in vacuum. You need to technically pressurize the system to positive pressure to see if you have any leaks. This is only going to be just a quick, easy way to get you going. You can see we haven't moved at all, held right where we were. So I'd say we're good to get her going. So what we're going to do now, get the power hooked up, turn the unit on, come outside, open the Freon, disconnect our vacuum. So with our disconnect, we got on, off. All our wires hooked up, ready to go. Boom. Put the cap on. Now let's go turn her on. We're gonna just turn it on. We got power. We're gonna run it on AC mode because it's hot. What I'm gonna do, set it at cool, drop the temperature so I can get that outdoor compressor to kick on faster. That's the only reason I'm turning it down, is so that outdoor unit kicks on fast so I can go release the Freon. So our outdoor unit just kicked on, our indoor unit's on. I haven't released the Freon yet, and that is just to make sure that if there is any issues will be out of the box that we've experienced so far. And so this saves us the Freon if there is any issues. So what I'll do now is I'm just removing the caps. I'm going to crack the Freon slightly and then remove my vacuum. I'm gonna wait till it gets positive pressure so that way I'm not allowing anything to travel back into the system. You can see it's starting to go up in pressure. So that way we don't lose any of the vacuum we just pulled. Take it all the way out to the set ring. Do that to both of them. As you can tell, you can hear the Freon running through it. And what I'm doing is just nylogging the caps, tighten them, and then close it all up. Now with everything set, we're just gonna put our cover back on. And what we're gonna do now is just check the temperature, what it's blowing. So it's getting to about 24, 25 degrees, which is really good. We're gonna switch it to heat mode, make sure everything's working properly. So if you see the heat sun at the top, so you basically set it, let it go for about 5 minutes, let it switch over, then you can adjust what you want to adjust. It's gonna take a minute for it to ramp up and actually get to temperature, but let's see what we're at. All right, so basically we're topping out about 145, 146. That's in heat mode. That's pretty insane because we're not using any electric coils as resistance. Our remote comes with the holder. We're just gonna set it right next to the unit. That's it. That's the easiest way that I found how to install a mini split. Hopefully that helps you. If you want anything else, we're gonna make more videos that are a little more detailed as far as vacuum, flaring, all of that, so check it out.